everybody. I'm Kira.
And I'm Crista.
And we are here for day 114 of the one-year Bible reading. Thank you for joining us this morning. And we are talking about, it starts off with Judges 2, verses 10 through, sorry.
You're good.
Okay. I'm not going to do the verses because it just runs into two. Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Kira.
And I'm Crista.
Thank you for joining us for day 114, and we are in Judges chapter 2. And as I read this, I was reminded that I had watched a TV show on Showtime, and it's with Bryan Cranston called Your Honor, and he's a judge in that. And as I was thinking about him and how he kind of walked into the courtroom and the command and the authority and the relationship with the lawyers and the jury, it kind of gave me a fascinating take on this, because these people are not just judges. Actually, they're there to not just to be. They were raised up as deliverers. So I thought that was interesting to kind of think about as I read through this. So
Judges is super interesting to me. It's always fascinated me because the judges go back and forth on whether they're following God and if they're, worshiping other idols and images and all of the idolatry and everything through that. And it's just interesting how they can just flip-flop, and it's not like they're following what the other judge prior to them is doing. They just take it upon themselves and, I'm going to believe in God now. It's interesting.
Yep. And I loved how, it's talking about people that rebelled through idolatry and disbelief, but God raised up a deliverer. I love that word of just raising up and sort of just giving them the person that they needed and who was going to help them with that. But, it starts off with a bang. After that generation died, another generation grew up who did not acknowledge the Lord or remember the mighty things he had done for Israel. And I think that just speaks to, how many times does that happen to us where we just don't remember the mighty things that he does? So, and so I enjoyed reading that, and also just the parts when the people of Israel cried out to the Lord for help, the Lord raised up a rescuer to save them. So it's the crying out for help piece of it and being answered is so reassuring.
Yeah, the book of Judges also brings up a Bible story that we have only covered once in the time that I was the preschool pastor, and it's the story of Ehud and just the dagger that goes into his stomach and stays there. And the imagery of that is so glorified, and I don't know, it's an interesting Bible story that isn't taught very much. So this passage of Judges is just so crazy to me.
A lot of detail, pretty graphic. So you sometimes wonder, boy, that's a lot of detail in there. And sometimes there's not a lot of detail. So it just makes you wonder about that. So, so I loved that reminder of he listened to the cries for mercy and raised up leaders. So we meet the first two judges in this chapter. So, and then we were on to Luke, chapter 22. And Jesus is with the disciples, and he took a cup of wine and gave thanks to God for it. I love how that's the first thing that he does. He takes that wine and gives thanks. And then, same thing after he took the bread, gave thanks. And I just think, gosh, that's just such a wonderfully simple yet powerful thing of, if we can just remember, take what we're given and give thanks, right off the bat. I love that image of that.
I highlighted that verse as well. I know this is the third time now that we have read about this, because it's also in the other two books of the the first two books of the New Testament, and just being reminded of the Last Supper and all of that is it's drills it into your head.
Yep. And then he goes on to speak, at this table sitting among us as a friend is the man who will betray me. And then our reading for the day then ends, with Peter saying, Lord, I'm ready to go in prison with you. And then Jesus says, no, I'll tell you the truth. By tomorrow morning, you'll deny me 3 times. And Krista, we just watched a video on Easter but it was also speaking about Judas and how kind of we have this idea of him in our minds of, oh, he's kind of a slithery snake, or he's just a bad guy, or he's just sort of kind of bad. But he was sitting there at the table amongst friends, and how he wasn't really that bad. He just maybe had different expectations of Jesus, or thought just his relationship with him. So how different the outcome for Judas was than Peter. And then in this video that we watched, it said if we ask for forgiveness, Jesus would have forgiven him, but the path was so different.
Yeah, that was a great video that we watched, and it was interesting. I had never thought of Judas that way, and just how he was a normal person. Like, we're all sinners. We all could have been in Judas's position. And Peter denying Jesus, the difference between the two, and how Judas didn't ask for forgiveness. He just took his own life. Versus Peter asking for forgiveness and being forgiven. And just how we can all use that as an example in our lives. When we make mistakes, we all do. And, all we have to do is ask for that forgiveness. It's
kind of, and then back to that sort of crying out for mercy, and we're going to be heard. So yeah, that was, it was timely to read this. What's so cool about it is we just seen that video, and we're assigned these days. So it's nice that worked out to be able to talk about that. And then right into Psalm 92, which is kind of funny. It just sort of follows up what Jesus did. It is good to give thanks to the Lord, to sing praises to the Most High is how it starts off. You thrill me, O Lord, with all you've done for me. I sing for joy because of what you have done. And then it goes on. I love the parts about the trees too. Strong like the cedars, flourish like palm trees, transplanted to the Lord's house. They flourish in the courts of our God. But what I love, the thing that I underlined the most and that I love the most is the world stands firm. And I have this bracelet that says stands firm. And I had this made, I can't remember, a couple of years ago, but I always I've started to highlight in the Bible where it says stands firm, because I think that applies to so much. And what was so cool is I was listening to the radio the other day, and the song, "But the Battle Belongs" by Phil Wickham came on, and he was talking about it. And he was just talking about how the words to that came about. But he was saying, we don't have to pick up our sword and shield and try to fight on our own. We can stand firm and hold the position. And I heard him say stand firm. I was just, gosh, I just love those two words together, because it's, whatever your battle is, whether it's, in your personal life, whether it's in your work life, whatever it is, just to stand firm in the confidence and, like he said, the salvation of the Lord on our behalf. And it's just those kind of words. And our worship team does such an amazing rendition of that song. And it's just so much authority and strength in reminding ourselves that the battle belongs to the Lord. So that was probably my favorite part of the whole reading. How about you?
I highlighted in Proverbs 14, those who follow the right path fear the Lord, and those who take the wrong path despise him. And it's interesting that my friends that don't go to church and don't follow the Lord do feel like, how can you believe and how can you follow something you can't see? And it just is interesting how, if they aren't following the Lord and they don't have that fear for the Lord, how it's so easy for them to follow the wrong path and just have that judgment towards us. So,
yeah. And Proverbs, it seems like it takes those wise words and make them simple, but sometimes it's not simple, but it is. Yeah. So, so I guess I would say maybe what stood out as far as encouragement to me, and hopefully maybe encouragement for you, is maybe just remembering that the Lord hears our cries for mercy, and he's there to help us and has sent a rescuer for us. And we still have that in Jesus and, the Holy Spirit as our advocate, but also just stopping to remember throughout the day, to give thanks. And even in the little things, sometimes like, When you're stuck at the stoplight or traffic, it's, I have an extra little time to hear that worship song or whatever the case may be, and giving thanks and those things that just along the day. And I do think that helps with change your heart during the day when you're having maybe a rough one. So, yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed the reading.
Yep. Well, thank you for joining us for day 114.
Woohoo!